We get into some pretty nasty trenches, let me tell you.
Their ROIs might be similar, but their integrity, I think, varies very differently.
Oh, how you guys doing?
Good, bro. What about you?
Hey, dude, just trying to figure out what Brian Armstrong's dog's name is. Typical stuff.
Yeah,
Typical trench
he's
shit.
fucking. He's gotten it buttoned down. I was trying to get on his Instagram, on wherever I could, LinkedIn, whatever the fuck. You can't
I
get anything
know.
out of this.
Yeah, so what's going on with that? I joined the shitcoin discussion earlier today. It seems like it was Castro for a minute, then it wasn't. I just saw like a ton of people aping stuff.
Yeah, I mean Moonshot, which is like not like the app, but the launch pad. It's really confusing. There's two different companies called Moonshot, and they both deal with shit coins. But one of them is a launch pad, and they like tweeted a reply to him saying congrats to Brian and his wife Angela and their dog Castro. But no one else has been able to verify if that's like real.
Oh wow. So is this on Solana then? The Castro token?
No, Brian Armstrong's the CEO of Base, so it would be a Base token.
Gotcha. I just didn't see any of them trending. I saw people talking about that, but I didn't see any casters or anything. I might have just been on
Yeah.
time.
The the main one was on base, but there's always another play on another chain. You know how it goes. Like it feels like there's always a secondary play either on Solana or something.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, for this one, it's very specific to the chain because I mean, obviously the CEO of the chain. So I
Oh,
wouldn't chase other plays on other chains. That does
yeah,
apply
I
to
agree
most
with that.
this one.
Miharu's looking to pump back to 3.3 mil. That's a nice one that we found really early.
Yeah, dude, that one. Oh my gosh, that one is almost 1,000x
That's
from where I sold it
crazy.
last night.
Holy
That's
shit.
That is
crazy.
actually insane.
What's
I
the
literally
story?
sold it at 4.4K. I thought it was dead, and that was so dumb of me. I honestly don't even remember selling it. I probably just like quickly did it. I wasn't even thinking, just to get it out of my wallet, so I didn't have to look at it anymore.
Yeah, that's what happens, right? Like you think, oh fuck it, I have too much garbage, just like too much dust. Let me just get rid of it all. Then one of them pops off, man. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I sold it at 4.4K, and now it's like 3.2 million right now.
I got one for you. I went and did myself the disservice of checking my old SPX trades, and a year and some months ago, I sold an undisclosed amount of SPX that was worth about $250, and today that would be worth about $29,000.
Oh man, bro.
That's good. Nice trade, nice trade. Look, I saw screenshots online of people like fumbling like $40 million of that token. It's the funniest thing, bro. Like looking back is so
Yeah.
bad for you.
Yeah, it was like over 50K of it, and it's a fraction of a penny, but then it got to 55 cents, and it's like, oh God, the math is real now. But to be fair, I just reminded myself in that year and months, I did so many wallet cleans and like scraping the couch cushion. So if I hadn't sold it that day, it would have been sold at least 20 times between then and now. So it was never going to be held, ever.
Like JJ always says, eyes forward. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining for talking shitcoins. Jake wanted to throw together a little shitcoin trading session today. We're just gonna be talking with Jake, Jinzo, and myself just to get some perspective on trading shitcoins. Obviously, Jake's been on a bit of a hot streak, and the market itself is also on a bit of a hot streak. So we got some fun table topics to discuss. As always, if anyone wants to hop in the conversation, feel free. You can always unmute or you can talk in voice hangout chat or shit coins and meme coins. We'll be monitoring both of those chats. But yeah, appreciate Jake suggesting throwing this together, and then shout out to content team for making it come to life here. But thanks for everybody tuning in on a Wednesday to break up our regularly scheduled program and bring to you this fun event today. So yeah, Jake and Jinzo, saw you guys have been crushing it lately. It's been nice to have the markets back.
Yeah, man, it's going well, thankfully. It was honestly a pretty rough chop season for like the last 6 or 7 months, and we had a really good run up last year from about like October to March or so, and then since then it's been like really really bad market conditions. I'm like almost the worst I've seen, probably worse than like when it was FTX wise, in my opinion. There just was like no opportunities out there, and like everything was just kind of like slow bleeding. Um, but I think we're finally starting to turn a corner here. There's a lot more confidence in the market, I'd say. People are feeling pretty good. We need Bitcoin to catch up a bit. I think it was the S&P just hit a new high today, all time high, and Bitcoin's still down, so that's not great. Um, I did see like the U.S. got like approved to sell a ton of Bitcoin from Silk Road, so maybe it's U.S. government suppressing the price right now by dumping all that Bitcoin. We'll see. Um, Regardless, it's good to see a ton of good stuff. A ton of confidence in the market. There's been a lot of cooks out there. I think everyone's pretty much heard of all these meme coins running like crazy. The Murad meta. I'm sure we'll get into all that, but yeah, I think it's a good time to lock back in a bit, especially since with the season changing over from summer to winter times. That's usually when people come back home and get on their computers and start to gamble a bit.
Appreciate the rundown, dude. And absolutely, definitely looks like things have been heating up. Just starting there with trying to lock back into the market for people who haven't been following it as closely. What would you say right now is sort of the best place, at least in your mind, where you go to track shitcoins as they're coming out? I see a lot of BullX screenshots in the shitcoin and meme coin channel from you, but is that kind of where you're going to monitor these coins? I know back in the day it used to be, Dex Screener and then BonkBot. So just what's the latest meta for trading?
Yeah, for me, it's definitely BullX. I know a lot of people use Photon too. Photon's pretty good as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with Photon. I just prefer BullX. I think they have a couple features that I like that Photon doesn't have, and I like their UI better too. But I mean, with either one of them, you can kind of get the chart view all in the same bot. It's all just in your browser. You don't have to like go to like Telegram and type in like tickers and stuff. Like I hate doing all that shit. Uh, but you can kind of trade super easily, just clicking buy, sell. Just like you basically just fund the third party wallet within BullX. Export the private key so you have it in your own wallets, and yeah, you're good to go. Sorry, my dog's whining. I gotta let him out.
No worries there. Always good time to walk the dogs. Jinzo, what about you, bro? What's your preferred platform these days?
Oh, sorry, bro. I had someone talking to me. Yeah. What were you asking me, Russ? What were you saying?
What's your preferred place to trade tokens these days?
Yeah, for me, it's definitely Bullets. Like Jake was saying, I really like that platform, and they have an airdrop coming, so I've been hammering it pretty hard. Um, Other than that, yeah, I mean, I haven't had as much time to dig into coins myself and look for like which ones are popping off and like directly on pump fund and stuff. I don't really do that. What I've been doing mostly this cycle is I've identified a few trading groups that I really like calling groups like POW, PO is good or Bandos is really good, and I just try to identify. I try to see if I like where they're coming from and what angles they're attacking on certain coins and if their thesis makes sense. And then I just ape because they have such a big following that the market's so hot right now that even if you get in early enough on most coins, you should do well. As long as it fits your thesis and you think that it's a coin that has a chance, and then from there you kind of decide what to do with each coin. Like there's some that are going to be quick flips within a few minutes. Some others might be like longer term holds that I think have a chance to hit a certain niche, and I hold them for longer. But yeah, my main thing right now, other than MVHQ, just so many great callers in here, people posting coins that I get to research and stuff and look through. I go into my groups and I check what other big names with large followings are talking about, because you know that if you're early enough on them and there's 70,000 people that are going to look at the same coin as you, I mean, you have a good chance of catching a good one. So it's just really about identifying the right ones, the right people actually, not just, you don't want just shillers that are dumping any coin on you, right? You want something that has actual like a base to it, something that has like something substantial to it. So that's it. It's just about finding the right groups and then aping into coins that you think work for you.
Appreciate that, dude. And yeah, great point there. If you have people that are coming in after you, you don't always have to be right. You just have to be, early, which is a really nice thing that you can get with some of those groups. I know you mentioned, using some of your discretion there and trying to find stuff that people aren't just shilling, maybe something that has a little bit more of a base to it. What are kinds of the things you might look for when evaluating a token and saying, is this something that can pop off? Because even with the market heating up, right, we just see so many tokens. Not all of them are going to make it. So, is there a criteria or something about a token that gives it that feel for you that makes it seem like it's a good buy?
I think the most important thing for me is meta. What meta we're in. Like we just saw for people that have been trading for the last couple of weeks, they saw that it was like the zoo animal meta. And the earlier you are to a certain meta, then the safer you can feel on playing like more coins in it. Like we had Mudang that popped off, then we had like a Pesto, which was a penguin that popped off, and like the first 3 or 4 coins in a certain meta, I don't feel too badly about playing. The main one is always going to run more, so you want to have like I have more conviction in that one, right? But the other ones for quick flips, I mean, I feel safe in playing them. So really the most important thing is paying attention to a certain meta and how sticky it is, because you can be in a meta and it could last a day. You really don't know, like, but you have to kind of you get good with time on identifying metas and how good they are by how sticky and how identifiable they are to certain groups or even to crypto Twitter. Like if you think that a meta comes out and it's like a cute animal meta and you think that, oh wow, a lot of people can relate to this cute animal meta, I think it could stick around for a few days to weeks to months, you know what I mean, or whatever it might be, then I feel more comfortable in trading those, right? If it's something that's going to be political where you don't know what's going to happen next week, well, maybe I'll just do quick flips on those. I don't feel comfortable holding them long term, for example, or even if it's a certain a celebrity, for example, you know that those are going to dump in within a day. Not everything is going to do like what Iggy Azalea did, like pay attention to their community and you know what I mean, work on the coin itself and work on the community and make it go to certain numbers. Like really care about people; they just care about the money. So you know that not that those aren't good holds. And from there, yeah, I mean, other than meta, yeah. What else was I gonna say? So yeah, meta is the most important thing, and I kind of lost my train of thought there. But what was the question again, Ross? Put me back on track here, bro.
Oh, you're nailing it, dude. I was just asking, what do you look for in a token to determine, if it's something that you think has legs or that potential for you to take a feeler in? But you're nailing it with the meta right now.
Oh right, yeah. So the meta is number one, and then from there, it's just how sticky it is, really. Like cute PFPs with good art. Like for example, Fog. Fog for me when it first came out, like I identified it right away as a mainstay. Right, it's almost like a Pepe play where there's memes attached to it and good art. And for me, that one, as soon as I bought it, I told myself, wow, I have a feeling that the market's kind of cold right now, but when it heats up, this thing could get to a few hundred mil. So I bought a bag around the under 10 mil, probably around the 5 mil range, and I told myself this is a long hold. Why? Because I saw that the artist was very busy. He would kept posting art, kept posting memes. People rallied behind it. Some big names in the space, even Cole, that was an MVHQ, right? He even reached out to them to be part of to help him grow that coin because he felt it was good. Like it just felt like it had a really good backbone to it. It felt like something could be built there. It felt like there was an actual cult forming around that coin. And even if we're in the wrong market for it, I felt that long term it would do well just because of like it ticked all the right boxes. It had good art, it had good community, it felt good. It just didn't feel like it was a shill fest all the time. It was just really like it was a feel good coin with good art, and that's all you really need sometimes, right? Just let the market come to you, let the community form and grow. And if you have the right one, you don't even have to stress about ups and downs. You just what I mean, hold it and wait for a day that market heats up and you'll be in profit. Like you'll notice that even us, well, we've been in the trenches all summer. We were in the trenches pretty much like for over a year now, right? In and out of the trenches. And what that does is that, sure, maybe you sold a lot of bags that are now like 100x from what they used to be, but you were involved and you let the market come to you. So you were ready and you were prepared way before anybody else right now. So you have advantages of knowing what meta we're in. You have advantages of kind of knowing what people are looking for. And you probably are tracking wallets that other people aren't aware of, and you're probably in groups that other people are trying to find already, and you already have the leg up on the competition because yes, like this is very PvP. We already know. So the fact that a lot of us were already in the trenches, we're ready for this now. We let the market come to us, and we're in a good position to really thrive and find coins for the group and throw them in here and maybe identify what a good coin is versus what a PvP market is or what a shitty coin a quick pump and dump is. So yeah, I mean those are our advantages, I think.
I appreciate that, Jinzo. A definite great rundown there, and I really like what you were saying there about um, tokens that oh shit, I totally lost my train of thought there. So you just laid it all out so eloquently there. But
So you were saying for basically what I was saying was tokens that have mainstay and like the fog that had that felt like it was the right coin to hold for long. Is that where you were trying to go with it?
yeah, exactly. Tokens that have the mainstay. And Jake, if you're back from walking the dogs, I wanted to get your perspective on this because I've noticed that just throughout shitcoin history, you've done a really great job of identifying those leaders quickly. What is it about a token to you that identifies that it has mainstay? Is it something that's Web 2 appeal? Is it just good social presence? But, Moodang as the primary example of recent note, you really did a great job just identifying that early, and that, really ran up and continues to be a pretty prevalent coin.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything concrete I can give. Um, it's a lot of it's just experience, just being around in the trenches and seeing what people like for the most part. And there's usually a pattern in those type of things. Like, um, when you see something pop off, there's usually something similar that pops off in the future. Like Moodang kind of reminded me a lot of Harambe, like a he didn't like die or anything like Harambe. It was like this zoo animal that got really popular and that was getting memed all over the place in Web 2, and just thought for like the amount of social attention that Mudang was getting, it wasn't the market cap for the coin wasn't like kind of meeting that, and it just kept growing and growing. So my conviction kept growing and growing as well, and it's just something with all these shit coins, like I feel like it's just something you have to like continually monitor. Like people always want price targets, but for me, the price target usually changes. Like I have an initial one probably or like area when I first buy a coin, but that always can change when new information is presented. Like you have to kind of stay flexible and continuing to like look for new information out there. Usually for me, it's like on Twitter, where I'm just like always searching the hashtag or whatever, the cash tag of the coin and seeing like what people are talking about in regards to it, to make sure I'm not missing anything. And if it makes sense, if it's still getting memed a lot, like more so than what I think it can go, then yeah, I'm gonna continue to hold. So, um, yeah, but I can't. It's hard because I can't really give anything concrete. A lot of it is really just like experience and just being, in the trenches and seeing what people like, and you kind of get an idea of it.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, it definitely is a very at your own discretion, and there's definitely a bit of guessing involved in it, right? Like we've seen shitcoins that have gone to multiple billions of dollars, have created brand new metas, and then we've seen stuff that looks hot and then fizzles out seemingly out of nowhere and goes straight to zero. So it's definitely tough to know. But with that fizzling out sort of sentiment there, for you and Jinzo, at what point do you feel comfortable holding a token through a dip? At what point might you actually be buying the dip? And again, I know there's some discretion involved there, and not every token is created equally. But when you're holding something and you see the price start to go down, and these are very volatile assets, what are usually your thought process in evaluating? Do I need to sell for a loss here, or should I, dollar cost average in?
Um, yeah, I'd say just like identifying why it's dipping in the first place is probably the number one thing. If it just ran up a ton, then dips are obviously just natural. People are going to take profit and it's going to go back down. So you have to think, if is this a level that I want to take profit at, um, or should I just wait it out? Because I believe in this coin still, and I have a longer time horizon than this hour or like 6 hours or whatever that it's dipping. That I can just kind of just hold and like step aside and just come back to it, and I think it'll be higher. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is like identify why it's dipping. Is it just natural, or is there like actual FUD um, in regards to the coin that is like materially changes how you feel about the coin? Um, or is like the FUD just not make sense if there is FUD, like, and you don't think it's gonna matter, so you just hold through it anyway. Um, I think that's kind of the biggest thing, and then just like figuring out what is your time horizon in general. I think with every single coin and every play, like you have a plan. ahead of time before you enter. And then you'll feel a lot better about what to do uh, as price moves up and down. You kind of will already know like what you're gonna do ahead of time, and continue to reevaluate if that plan makes sense based on whatever new information is presented.
So, do you usually, when you're purchasing a token, reserve some capital aside for buying dips, or you usually buy off the bat and don't scale in?
Um, I pretty much always buy dips, I would say, for the most part, or at least attempt to. Like if a token is run up a good amount, it's like only green candles, then I'll just wait. I'm okay missing something. I'm okay waiting a good amount of time. Um, if that means I lose out on some profit, that's fine. I just don't like to buy green candles, and that's burned me sometimes. Like that burned me when I first sold my Mudang, and it just like kept going up, and it just like would not dip at all, and it just went like 3 or 4x almost from where I sold it. And that just happens sometimes, but I think for the most part, it's beneficial to just wait and get a good entry. Like that's I like have to like get a good entry to feel good about a trade usually. And usually the best time is after a big run up, and it dips like 40 to 60%.
Yeah, that was my next question for you. So, if you're seeing this run up and then you get some nice red candles there indicating a good entry, do you have, in terms of a plan, a set price point of this is my entry, I'm going to take it here at 40% retracement? Or is it also just a very discretionary thing where if there's just been a ton of demand through the day, maybe you would take a 20% dip? And then, do you scale into that dip, or are you deploying it and saying, okay, this is a good, 40% retracement, I'm going to enter here and then see what happens?
Yeah, I like to do a couple things. On Bullx, there's a measure tool, so you can kind of see you can like take from the top of the whatever the green candle is and drag it down, and it'll like give you the percent change if it dips that low. And I usually like to start like a DCA from around like 40% or so after big run ups if I think it's gonna keep going, and then down to like 60% or so. But usually when there is a dip, like I don't think that most of the time there's not like a big rush to enter. Like usually it ranges a bit at the lows when it does dip, so you kind of have some time to market buy some low spots if you can get in at that time.
Appreciate that. That's great perspective there. And Jinzo, same question to you. You have a varying perspective or experience on usually your approach to buying dips.
The entry itself, right? Obviously, it's important to have rules. When you're going to go trade shitcoins, and I'm sure we're going to touch on them more and more here on this talk, but you need to have strict rules. For me, it's really like any coin I see, I'm usually just buying one or two SOL of it. You understand? Because a lot of times you think you're right and it just goes to zero. So you have to trade proportional to what your bankroll is. And for me, it's really, even if I have a great feeling about a token, most of the times I'll just dip my toe in with a little bit, like one or two SOL. If I really feel good about it, like maybe I'll put 5 or 6, like but a lot of the times that's burned me too. So I try to stay on the low side. And then from there, I see how it goes and I DCA and as it goes, right? Like when it pumps and there's another dip, maybe there's a retrace of 30, 40%, which happens quite often on run-ups. I'll add more, right? Until I'm at a comfortable spot. It's important to know though, like sometimes you're right about something, it's just you're so early to it and you're so early that you're in disbelief about it and you're wondering why this coin's not running. So you kind of need to have, you know what I mean, on the coins that you feel good about, have a bit of conviction. It doesn't mean you have to ape your entire portfolio, but just have a bit of conviction and hold and see how the market reacts to news that might come out on that token or to other groups starting to call it. Like it's happened so many times where we have a token at 50K market cap and we're like, bro, it's impossible. I can't be the only one on this. And then like maybe an hour later, we'll see it's at 2 million. So, and I see that every day in chat. Really, I see coins being posted every day. Even I think, man, there's no way this is ever going to run. I don't know why this guy's posting it. And all of a sudden, an hour later, it's at 3 million and I didn't buy. So, it's just about having a little bit of conviction and buying. I would say don't go crazy on your initial buy unless it's something you really feel strongly about. You can add a little bit extra. But for me, it's really that. It's about like just scaling in and realizing that only one out of maybe 100 coins you're going to trade is actually the one. So you don't want to be burning yourself on every single coin. You want to make sure that there's something really, really special about a coin that you ape harder into, right? Like, I mean, Mudang was a fucking no-brainer to me, and I think to a lot of people in chat too. It was like, this thing's everywhere. There's millions of views per day on this little hippo, and it's still only at a, like, let's say 5 or 6 million. I'm like, it can't be. Like, there's a little bit of a, there's something wrong here. I think it's gonna pump way more. So that's that one I kind of scaled heavier into. But still, let's say I did a 5 SOL buy at 10 million. I mean, if the thing ran to 150, 300 million market cap, I still made a lot of money. I don't need to ape hard from the beginning and burn myself in case I'm wrong, right? So that's it. I think being smart about your plays and not going too crazy on each play, because there are so many plays on any given day. Just take it easy and scale in. You don't have to really overdo it. And rules are important. I mean, the more money we make, we keep thinking we're geniuses, right? All of a sudden, you made 200 SOL, and you think you're the smartest guy on the planet. And then the next play, you decide, you know what? I have 200 SOL. I'm free riding. I'm gonna put 20 SOL on my next play, and you lose it all. And then you're like, damn it! I think I just screwed up on this one. And you start revenge trading, and you lose another 20 SOL in the next one. I mean, a lot of us in this chat have gone through that road. So sure, you might hit a big lick on one token, but you have to always make sure to not overdo it on the next token and the one after. Like, really just stay in the grind and grind it out slowly. You don't need to get ahead of yourself when you're starting out, or even ever, really. Like, so many even expert traders, the market shifts on them, and all of a sudden they're over invested, or they're buying the same way, but they haven't noticed because they're just filled with greed. They haven't noticed that the market shifted and now it turned into a PvP market, or that nobody's buying shit coins anymore because of whatever else is happening in the world. And then they get caught like trading coins that shouldn't even be traded, and they're putting way too much money in. So that's it. I know I kind of went away from what the main question was, but I know we're gonna touch on this soon, but I just wanted to put that out there because it's important too for when you're buying. You need to know these things.
Yeah, absolutely, Jinzo, and definitely appreciate that, man. I mean, I've been guilty of it before where I see a token and, particularly the point you had on revenge trading, there's been tons of times where I might have FOMO watching some MVHQ members hit some juicy tokens and I'm like, "Oh man, they just hit 100x, like, okay, I'm not going to miss the next one." And then next thing you know, you're throwing, 10% of your bankroll into a potato coin that goes up 10% and then goes straight to zero. So you really do have to use a lot of discretion and be careful there.
To
Jake,
add
I
on
see.
there, one more thing to add on, like Jake, like if you see how Jake was talking about his point of view, it was all rational thinking. What happens when you start trading with too big of a number? You get nervous and you get scared about the position, and you're telling yourself, "Man, I don't want to lose it all," and it starts dipping, and you can't think clearly. So when you do start trading with too much size for you, then you can't make proper trades and you can't think properly and you can't buy dips and you can't do the things that you're supposed to do to actually have success. So really, it just, before even trading, just get your rules right. You know what I mean? And don't overdo it, especially at the beginning. You don't want to be trading with emotion, basically.
Wouldn't buy groceries while hungry. Completely agree. Uh, Jake, I see you have a live stream pulled up here for everyone listening in voice hangout chat. You can just navigate over to Jake's name and click his live there. We're now in BullX. What you got pulled up for us here, Jake?
Yeah, I wanted to illustrate what I was talking about. But yeah, just go back real quick, Jinzo. I think you made some really great points around rules and having discipline. I think we can go into that a little bit more. But while I have this pulled up, I want to show, this is Maharu. I know this is a big one we're talking about today in voice hangout, but I thought this was a pretty good illustration of usually how thankfully it worked out well for me. It doesn't always, but usually my strategy for buying dips, what we're talking about, um, a lot of these coins, especially if they are on an uptrend, they usually follow pretty simple TA, technical analysis, and like usually involving trend lines. Like this, I'm by no means a TA expert, but you'll find like a lot of these shit coins, they follow TA pretty well. This is kind of like just a 30 here. I'll put on like the 1 minute chart. But in Bullx, you can just do really simple stuff. This is a trend line tool right here. Just making a quick little line. And this kind of illustrates well, like this is the first dip, or this is the first pump we saw when Maharu launched out of nowhere. I think like X tweeted about the dolphin, and they got a bunch of impressions, and they talked about how many it got, like some millions of impressions or whatever, um, on their platform. And I remember seeing that same tweet for Mudang that they did, and Mudang went pretty crazy the following days after they did that tweet. And I've just seen this dolphin a bunch, so I was like, all right, I need to get back in. You can see here I sold for absolute pennies, really rough. But I said, oh well, I need to get back in. So I saw it at this uptrend, didn't want to buy here, so decided to make a little trend line. Made a plan. I'm gonna buy when it starts bouncing against this trend line. As you can see, the 40 to 60% rule. This is pretty much 60% exactly, with how much it dipped. So I kind of started scaling in here on this dip, and thankfully it worked out. It doesn't always work out this well. Um, but after that, yeah, it went back up. So I just want to show a quick little explanation of how I use these tools pretty simply on Bullx, to enter into these positions.
Nice. And then I see there in the buy zone, you have a few different buys there. So is that sort of you feeling it out in real time, just kind of trying to evaluate, okay, how much do I really want in this token here? And just kind of maybe doing some research at the same time once you entered in, going on Twitter, scouting out a little bit more?
Um, yeah, I usually do that. I like to just DCA in so I don't get like a bad candle or wick or something on my buys, where like someone buys like right before I send it in and I get like a bad entry. So I like to DCA in, and usually do like 5 or 6 buys in my position, so it kind of averages out a bit. Also, I'm kind of using a little bit more size, so I don't want to like pump the price a ton and get a bad number.
Yeah, Jake's 10 solo is my one solo play. Is like if I could probably play that high, but that's not me, man. I can't do it. So he's got we all have different. You have to know what's good for you and how you're gonna feel comfortable in a trade and just go with it. Like he's feeling comfortable with those numbers. I feel a bit less. You might feel a bit less than me. So you know what I mean. Just use size that you feel comfortable with. But like, look at all these buys that he did, right? On another token, maybe he wouldn't have bought so many times, but just because it had the exposure that it did on X or whatever, and he saw that, you know what I mean, it's getting the proper traction, he made multiple buys. Maybe on another coin he'll just go in with 10 soul. It's just really dependent on how much traction you think a coin's gonna get.
Um, yeah, and Dank asked me how I drew that box, the measurement box. It's like this measurement tool right here on the side. And I just go from the top of the wick of usually like the 1 minute chart or something. Or if it's like on a longer time frame, then I'll do like 5 minute or something. And then just click it and draw down to the bottom of the wick. So you can see here it's minus 60%. Is how much it fell back down, to give yourself a bit of a clue.
Wow, that's awesome. No, I really appreciate the screen share here. And I do want to dive a little bit more into risk management, Jake, because I know that was a topic top of mind. I know Jinzo touched on it a little bit, but how important is risk management to you, and what role do you think it plays in your shitcoin trading?
Yeah. I really want to talk about this one. I think this is like the most important thing for shitcoins. I think you need to have proper risk management. It's something I certainly didn't have when I first started, and I definitely lost money. Um, I know it like sounds boring, but it is like super important to be a profitable trader over time. It's not just shitcoining as well. I mean, this is all any types of trading, but I think some concrete stuff you can do, like what I do, and then I used to do it, but then I started trading poorly, and I was like, I need to change something. Um, I just track every single trade that I make in a sheet. I can actually share it. I don't have it ready for right now, but I can share like the template that I use if anyone wants to use it. But I just track it like in Google Sheets. Just every trade, my entry, how much, whatever my cost basis is on it, and then my P&L for every single trade. And that just gives you a really good idea of how well you're doing, obviously. But also you can kind of look back and see what kind of trades you did good on, what kind of trades you did bad on, and it gives you a nice visual of what I think is super important to know, especially for shitcoins, is like you're probably most likely going to lose the majority of trades that you take. Like I think that's something you really need to understand. In shitcoins is like, especially, I mean, I certainly do. I lose more than 50% of trades that I take with shitcoins. It's just making up for those trades. Like you have like one trade that can make up for 10 or 20 um, those big hits. And maybe some people's styles are different. Maybe people are just scalping and they have a higher hit rate with the scalping. But for me personally, like I like to hit big, and that comes with the understanding that you're gonna lose majority of the time. So you need to be able to plan for that. And how you do that is just not is just using a small percentage of what your overall bankroll is. Bankroll is just the money that you have allocated for the specific trading. So if you have like if you're going with shitcoins and you're like, all right, I kind of want to play some shitcoins, I'll use like 5% of my total funds to dabble in shitcoins. Then of that 5%, I would use like maybe like 10% of that 5% per trade, maybe even less, especially when you're first starting out. Um, Everyone's size is going to be different, you know, just depending on who you are and how much you have to work with. But that's usually like a good rule of thumb I would go with. And then just like using the same amount of size every trade. Um, that way you kind of consistently um, won't go overboard with a trade and just go all in. You know, all right, I'm maxed out at this amount. I'm not going to put any more in on this single trade, and it keeps you from going all in, thinking you have absolute mooner play, because a lot of times it just doesn't work out, and it's just things that you didn't think about, that you didn't see. You know, maybe it was bundled a ton, and the dev just absolutely nukes it, or maybe um, you know, there's another coin that PvPs with it that's also really good, and that takes all the attention away. Like a lot of times you just can't see what's coming. You think that you really have a great play, and it just doesn't work out. So risk management is just vitally important for shitcoins, especially when you're first starting out, and you don't have like a great feel of uh, how well you're gonna do. I think you need to take some certain steps, tracking your trades, using the same amount, or like what I like to do is like using a bucket of amounts. Like I do like two different amounts. I do one for like trades that are like 300K market cap or lower, and then one for like trades that are higher than that. So I'll just do like a smaller amount on, because those are just a lot more risky since they're like brand new. Um, yeah, I think that's all I had on that.
Appreciate that, Jake. I do want to offer the opportunity for the audience to ask any questions. If you want to just tag them here in voice hangout chat for Jake, Jinzo, or myself regarding risk management, because it really is just a great topic and tool for any trader out there. So if you've been trading without tracking your trades at all, and it's more just done on a whim than a system, feel free to ask some questions. Now's a great time to do it because we can talk through those before we readjust and go into some deeper topics there. So let me just marinate that one for a second. I see a lot of people talking and get some follow up there, but definitely appreciate hearing about that system, Jake.
I can add just since we talked about rules while people are bringing questions or whatever. Like the most important really is your entry. Don't FOMO in. I know we touched on that already, but really don't FOMO in. There's always other plays. And the most important one that people don't do because they get greedy, and I've been guilty of it 1,000 times, is really just taking out your initial as fast as humanly possible. Like the market's hot right now, so a 2x should be pretty easy to get on most coins if you got in at the right time. I mean, you should be taking out your initial 2, 3, 4x, depending on how you feel about a certain coin. But I'm taking out those initials as fast as humanly possible. That way, my ego doesn't get involved, and I don't like end up losing whatever it is I had in. At least after that, I'll be free riding, and I can be a bit more loose with my cash outs. But that initial is always coming out real quick with me.
Great shout there, Jinzo. And yeah, Van Squeeb just echoed that sentiment there. He was saying that important to note, definitely for peace of mind and just mental health, and practically to be selling clips along the way up to avoid some of those unknown risks, such as dev selling, PvP, new news, etc. So definitely good to take initials. I guess, Jake, from a risk management perspective, is there a process that you have for selling out? Do you have set thresholds of once it hits this target, I'm going to sell, or is that more of a feel based thing of, hey, I've seen this pattern play out before. The meme's not memeing as much anymore. I'm going to pull all of it. Do you usually scale out?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, it's definitely dependent on what the coin is. I'd say it's dependent on what the coin is, and it also is dependent on what the price action is too. Like if there's like consecutive like big green candles, like especially for like this Maharu one, if like there's like one more maybe I'll start. But I also like have decent conviction here, so I might just hold anyway. Um, but if there's something that I have less conviction on, um, or if I need more liquid too, then I'll take some profit too, just so I can rotate another place. So there, I mean, there's several different factors involved. It's certainly not any type of like hard and fast science. But probably more of an art, I would say. Van Scoop does make a good point about selling at clips. I definitely do that. I rarely sell all at once unless there's like some FUD event or something, and I want to just get out. But usually I sell in like clips, depending on how big my size is. On the way up, I kind of I like to DCA out, um, like usually like 10% of the time, 20% of the time, whatever it is.
Definitely appreciate that, and got some really great screen cap sharing here in voice hangout chat, so appreciate that. But yeah, definitely makes sense to take profit when needed, and I mean, I'm sure it definitely depends, like you said, on the token as well. We got another question here from Pharaoh. He was curious to know if you guys ape low caps at all. If not, what is the lowest market cap you're comfortable aping? And that ties perfectly because I was definitely going to ask the both of you, once things heat up, is there a certain type of token that you target? Does that affect? I know, Jake, you said you usually bet one amount per token, but does that scale with market cap?
Um, yeah. I'd say I do less. Usually like under like 300K or so, I'll do a lesser amount than what I would do over that, just because it is so high risk. The lower it is, especially if it's like brand new, um, and you can still get like a good amount of um, obviously allocation with a lower amount when it's a uh, lower price. So you don't really need to go crazy on it and take a big risk on those lower ones. Uh, But no, but to answer the question, no, there's not like a market cap that I wouldn't get in. Maybe like I don't know, like under like 50K, but that's like, I mean, most coins are over 50K if they anything uh, interesting. I'd
Similar
say
for
like
me.
my sorry, just real quick, I would just say like my probably like best is anywhere from like 500K to like 2 million is like probably like my sweet spot, or maybe like 300K to 2 million. Because that's usually when there's been a dip or two in the coin, and it's established some kind of presence, and there's been people who have like done DD on it, and if there's any FUD regarding the token, it's probably came out by now. For the most part, unless it just goes to that instantly, right after out of the gate. So that's usually like my sweet spot, and you can still get like pretty crazy multiples from that area.
Yeah, I'm pretty much aligned. I feel the same about the sweet spot. It's pretty much my sweet spot too. I feel like the more established when they get there. Obviously, a lot of coins at 500K could also go to zero, but you know what I mean. I feel comfortable aping a small amount in them there, depending on what the coin is. Anything below that, like a lot of the times, it'll just go to zero and not pop back up. So you're risking way more. So you want to obviously put less into that trade too if you do get in. Like I've hit the lowest I think I got in on a coin was probably 20K, and then I got out like at a couple mils. So that, you know what I mean? But I had a very small amount and it turned into something. I got lucky there, but you're not going to get those. Usually they're very hard to get in. It usually takes a buy-in on pump fund that we haven't even talked about really, but I don't think a lot of us even do a lot of the pump fund stuff. But yeah, I mean, most of them that I try to target are higher than that. I've been buying a lot more in the 2 or 300K range. I find just because they're getting called here early and because there's a lot of action in the market. But I'm okay with those going to zero. Because I'm not putting a lot in, right? I mean, it could happen. It's gonna happen more often than not that you're just in the wrong coin and it's gonna go to zero. So, but yeah, those ranges are pretty much the ones I try to trade. Also, the higher you go, the less upside you have. So obviously you need to be careful there too. I mean, the 500 to 2 million range is good because it has a lot of upside, a lot less downside, obviously. But let's say now you start trading coins that have pumped for hours and hours, and they're nearing the 10 million market cap point. I mean, I've seen those just crash down to down to like a million or less really fast a lot of the time. So you're starting to get more into a dangerous territory. And you usually, when they get there, I try to wait and to see if I can get them on a dip and try to DCA in. Or a lot of the times I just won't touch them at all because I know how hard that mental barrier is. Numbers are filled with mental barriers. We set number. You know how it is when you trade, or just in general when you buy something. The numbers are like they catch our eye, and they have mental barriers, psychological barriers that are put into place for everybody. So when you start hitting those psychological barriers that even you question, you shouldn't be buying. You should be just analyzing it and seeing what you might do if it goes up or down. You don't want to FOMO at certain levels just because you saw three gigantic red candles in a row and all of a sudden the token you missed is at 10 million. Oh my god, I would have made 15x on this thing. Nah, you wait. There's gonna be another play. We're in a hot market. Wait and see. Like if it comes down to a level you're comfortable with, go ahead and buy. And if it keeps running, usually it doesn't happen one shot. It's very rare you'll see something go from 10 million to 100 million instantly. It's maybe 1 in 1,000 that'll do that. But yeah, so you want to be strategical about it. Just be careful with how you ape and when you ape.
Yeah, that's great advice, Jinza, for sure. I mean, I was gonna ask you guys next. So, in terms of these kind of cautionary things, right? Because you called it out nicely. Coins do go from 10 million to 1 million in like a single candle. Is there anything that you guys look for from a safety perspective when trading in terms of tokenomics? Do you look at the holder count? Do you look at distribution? Are there any websites or tools that you might use to check for honeypots, or is that kind of just factored into the risk equation of some of these coins are going to be rugs? So I'm expecting that to happen, and you're more so just waiting for the token to be mature enough to say, okay, it's at 300K, hasn't crashed yet, so I'll take the chance.
Yeah, admittedly, I'd say this part of shitcoins is probably like where I need to improve the most, in my weakness. But there's like a couple things that you can look at, and you kind of just get the hang of it. When you have some experience under you. But like, if you're watching this stream, for instance, like on Pump Fund, you can look at the holders, or sorry, on BullX, I mean, you can look at the holders and see, um, what the distribution is. Like here, it has top 10 holders have 16% of supply, top 50 have like 25% of supply. The others have 60% of supply. This is a pretty good distribution. It's not super concentrated up top. Like this is about average. Um, and this usually like includes like the liquidity pools and stuff in there too. And we have 2,500 holders. That's a good, pretty spread out, I'd say, as well, especially for a new token. So I'd say distribution's pretty good here. There's also like on BullX, there's like these insider tabs, which usually mean like that top holder has transferred their tokens to like another wallet. So that's usually what it is. Like this person has bought $0 worth, but they have 1.5%. That just means someone else like transferred their tokens to this wallet. As long as there's just not like a crazy amount of insiders here, then like it's not like people just like messing with distribution, and it's not like super held all by like one wallet. Like this is probably a pretty normal amount of insiders on a coin here. And you can also look at bubble maps. I think Photon has a bubble maps feature. I don't use Photon anymore, so someone else would have to speak on that. But you can kind of see like what wallets are associated with each other on these, like visually on these bubble maps, and that's another way of doing it. But again, admittedly, like that's probably like one of my biggest weaknesses. I usually look at stuff like, I mean, volume. Like if you see like volume and you see like these trades are normal, like it's 2 sol, 10 sol, 3 sol. It's not like someone's just like trading back and forth like barely any sol at all. Like these are all very normal buys and sells. If something's getting high volume, then that usually means it's like legitimate. And even if it has like a pump Sorry, if it has like pump at the end of the contract, then you know it's like it migrated on pump funds, so it should be a safe contract. Um, in general, that's usually good. And a lot of times like Photon and stuff, Photon or Bullx, it'll give you like a warning up here if there's anything in the contract that can be manipulated, like if they can freeze your tokens or something like that. So that's another big plus from a safety side in using these tools.
That's awesome. I definitely appreciate that, Jake, and really cool just to see all these built-in features of BullX. I've been over on Photon, so I'm definitely gonna make the leap. Jinzo, same question to you. Is there any kind of precaution or any tips that you might have when making some buys in some of these tokens? Definitely a great tip, like you said, to sell your initial as quickly as you can. But anything else, any safety practices that you've been upholding?
I think Zig covered it well. I mean, just for safety, like these sites, these platforms we use now, they do a good job of identifying honeypots and all of that automatically for you. So I haven't had to do much of the extra DD lately. So that's always fun. Like, I mean, it's a much quicker to do the research now into Ape than it was, let's say, a few months ago, where anything you would buy, you weren't sure unless you did a few more minutes of actual DD. But no, other than that, I think Jake covered it perfectly. The other thing I would say is I like to look at, especially when buying after a certain amount of time. Like I like to look at chart structure, and if you look at like Miharu over here, I mean, it's had its dips, it's had its movement on the 1 minute chart, and for me, it's just I wait for a dip on coins like that, and they might have like higher upside over time because they've touched certain levels already and they've bounced. So yeah, that's it. I just look at different chart types, and if time has passed and I see it, let's say a coin gets to over 100 million that I really liked, and it starts dipping like crazy because people are buying, and people are selling, and there's no new buyers to come in. I usually wait till that gets to a certain level for a few days even, um, and then I'll scale in when I feel like it's bottomed because those coins that ran hard, they feel good. They're good. You might be looking at the right coin, but they've ran so hard in such a short period of time that there's gonna be dips, like we saw it with Mudang, and we saw it with a lot of other coins. Fwog, same thing for months and months and months. It went sideways, and for me, it's basically just scaling into coins I know are legit, especially if it's a long term hold and it's going to be something I'm looking to get to the billion plus range. I'll wait for that period where nobody's looking at it. You know what I mean? It still feels good. The right people are still holding, and I'll just scale in slowly, slowly, slowly when it's bottomed and it's been trending at that same support line for, let's say, days and days on end. So yeah, that's it. I mean, it just really there's a lot of feel to it too. I don't really trade with lines and stuff. I just trade really on feel, and a lot of it's just mental for me. It's not the best for everybody, but that's just how it is. Things stick out to me when I look at a chart, and that's how I trade. But trend lines are amazing. Like you see how Jake drew that. It's so easy and obvious when you start making those lines, but you need to be careful also not to draw too many lines, and because you're gonna identify false narratives for yourself. So keep it simple if you're gonna start trading with those lines. Don't go crazy with it. You don't want to be putting yourself like in situations where you're basically convincing yourself to buy coins that you shouldn't buy. I'm not saying that's the case here. I mean, that's perfect. You see it touch that trend line 3 times. It's very simple chart pattern. It's easy to buy those. But yeah, just be careful. Don't draw too many lines and get a little crazy with it. Keep it simple.
That's awesome, Jinzo. I definitely appreciate your perspective there. I definitely think there is a lot of feel involved with these things, but really like your sentiment of just feeling out the charts and seeing how it's holding over time. And I do want to shout out NFT Ranch here as a really good tip here in Photon. Said to look in top traders and seeing if they're still holding or if they have cheated. So I think that makes a ton of sense, right? If someone's still holding and they're a top trader on the token, definitely bullish to some extent. I guess to the other side of that coin, if they've cheated and sold, maybe new entrants can get in, but definitely want to see some long term holds there. And also noted that new coins seem to have about 600 to 1,000 holders and feels better when it's 1,500 plus. So that's all great. Another topic that I wanted to touch on as we close out the hour here is sort of the PvP nature of the markets that have really developed recently. I feel like a few years ago, things were very community based, right? It seemed like everyone had money to be made because there was just so many participants coming in the market. Now it seems a lot more PvP, and we particularly see that across chains. So I think Mudang is a great example where on Solana, that was the primary Mudang that reached about 200, maybe 300 million market cap at one point. And then that fell down to about 100 million. And then out of nowhere, the Mudang on Ethereum just launched and also got close to 100 million. So just curious if you guys have any perspective on that as to what's going on with this PvP nature of tokens. How do you usually play that when a token that is popular has like 5 different variations? How do you know when to buy or which one to buy?
Yeah, man, the PvP stuff is pretty tough. It's kind of just inevitable for tokens now, which is unfortunate. But just the fact that we have two chains, uh, two chains, Sol and ETH now. Like last cycle was basically just ETH, where everything was for shitcoins. Maybe like BNB as well. But now with Sol and ETH being kind of dominant ones, um, it's hard. It's a lot of it's a feel thing. Like, um, a lot of it can be like social traction. Like, how good is the team behind that specific coin? Like, if the Sol team is better than the ETH team, um, then it'll usually likely do better. And like, what was an established coin before the other one. But it can be tough. Like sometimes you just have to buy both, and that's usually what I do. For stuff that's like brand new, like if there's just a meme that is popular, especially like outside of crypto, then it's like okay, like this specific chain can't really lay claim to that meme. Um, so like a lot of times, if you can get a good entry, then it's like all right, well, if that just started, then I'll just buy both, and a lot of times both will pump if they do good enough, and you can kind of just sell pumps or like rotate from one to the other and like track which one's getting more volume or which one is getting more interest on socials or has like a more well put together team. So again, I mean, like with all these things, I wish I could give like a concrete answer, but there's certainly nuance involved. I'll say like it depends on what the meme is too. Like if something is an organic meme, um, in the crypto world, and it's like started specifically um, by like a by a by like a team itself, or a coin itself. Like Flog, for instance, is a good example. Like that was just like created out of nowhere. That wasn't like outside of crypto. It was just like this really good artist, and they started this coin on Sol. So like in that sense, like an ETH frog is never really going to do much. Like there might be like some like scam speculative pumps, but it's never going to be able to like PvP its way to competing with the Soul Flog, because the Soul Flog was like organically created, by this artist, and the artist chose, the Soul one, to deliver all their art and be part of their team. Or like for instance, another obvious one that we were talking about is like this Castro, or like Brian Armstrong's dog, who's like the CEO of Coinbase. Um, like in that instance, like then like the only coin that's really going to do well is going to do well um on base itself. Like people are trying to create solo ones, like it's just not going to work, because he's obviously like he's the CEO of Coinbase, so people are going to use Coinbase. They're not going to go uh Coinbase's chain. They're not going to go to Sol. So, or like if like there was a Vitalik meme or something like that would only do well on ETH. So you kind of have to like understand that part. But most of the time, it's unfortunately like PvP if it's outside of like the crypto realm, like Mudang, for example, like you said. Um, and you kind of just have to watch it. Unfortunately, like there's a lot of cabal stuff that happens on ETH, especially where they can kind of run it up really quickly to high market caps. So sometimes it's just worth like taking a hedge if you have a big position in the Sol one, just taking like a small hedge in whatever ETH one's like getting good volume, um, just to protect your bags a bit.
Definitely appreciate that. That's a very thought out answer on the PvP nature of the markets, and definitely, appreciate the discretion there and just all the warning signs in terms of stuff on ETH and being aware of KOLs or the cabal. But yeah, it's definitely always tricky. So definitely appreciate the tips there. Shout out to Van Squeeb. He posted a pretty useful shitcoin trading thread shared a while back. That's has some dip buy strategies thrown in there. So appreciate that, Van Squeeb. Gents, we are approaching the hour, which is the time that we had slated for today, but we can keep it going a little bit more if need be. Any parting thoughts or anything top of mind for either of you two in terms of trading shitcoins?
Sure, I'll go first. Yeah, I just want to leave on. I think again, like I think the most important thing is risk management, especially when you're starting off. You know, make sure you're tracking your trades. Make sure you're um, not going crazy with your bankroll. Um, it sounds boring again, but it's super important um, to be able to level up and and be able to see if you're actually good at this, and see if you're getting better over time, or if it's for you. So and you don't absolutely go crazy and like lose all your money. Risk management is super important.
I agree with all of that. Just take it slow. I mean, we've said it a few times during this talk, but just take it slow. Don't go crazy. Don't get greedy. We all get greedy. We have all been down that road a million times. It really is just about working on that greed and not letting it take you over. Don't get cocky because this market will humble you very fast if you start getting a little bit too ahead of yourself. And really, just if you don't have any experience at all in shitcoins, just take it slow and don't like because you don't know the market conditions. You don't know how fast the market could shift. You don't know how fast it can go PvP. A lot of us have that feel. Like we saw after the animal meta that we just saw with Mudang and everything, we started feeling it shift to PvP, and a lot of us just stopped trading entirely, or we started getting in and out of out of tokens much faster to make sure we lock in that profit. Like and when it starts shifting like that, when a lot of people start making money in shitcoins and others start jumping in, you see that, right? You see a lot of the PvP start, and that's the most dangerous time. When it starts getting to PvP, just don't be afraid to lay off the gas or just stay out completely and wait for things to materialize again and a new meta to pop up. I mean, it's important to kind of get that. And I think that might be even the most important thing. It plays into market condition a lot, but the meta we're in is probably the most important thing to keep a track of. And if you're not sure what meta we're in, well, just wait and see which one gets established again because there's always a new meta forming. And I think the most important thing is to know which meta we're in and which phase of the market for that meta we're in. So if you're early on, you can go a little harder. When you start getting a little bit more towards the tail end, you want to be able to just stop or scale out faster because that's what everybody else is doing. You just have to be when it's PvP, you just got to be ahead of everybody else and be faster than everybody else and be, you know what I mean, able to execute quicker. So just really identify which part of the market we're in or which part of that meta we're in, and if we're too late, just hold off. We're in a hot market right now. We're going to be, I think, personally, I think we're going to be in a hot market for months. With ups and downs, obviously, there's going to be some quiet periods, even with shitcoins or with whatever else we're trading. But don't feel like you need to go all in and that you're missing out and that we're making money and you aren't. So you need to jump in with both feet. You have time to take it slow and learn the right way because if you don't have the right foundation from now, you're just going to get wrecked when the market shifts and you don't realize it and you think that it's still okay to ape hard. So just like take it slow and play safe.
Oh, that's great advice there, Jinzo. And got a question here from Bios who said, how much minimum would you need to start off shitcoining? And honestly, Bios, there's not really a minimum in mind. I'd say maybe like one soul would be a good place to start. I would definitely recommend just starting on Solana because it has much cheaper fees than Ethereum. But just like Jake sharing his screen there, you can go over to BullX or Photon and just practice trading. And if you start with one soul, that's really good practice. If you lose a little bit, it's not going to be the end of the world. You can definitely get back in the game there. You don't have to go all in with one soul either. You could do half a soul if you want to, or even 0.1 and just get an understanding of what is your style. Are you someone who likes to scalp or ride the swings? There is lots of it. Follow-up question from Bios here. How much risk per trade of your stack? I personally tend to try to do about 1/20th, so maybe 5% per trade, but I'm sure there's different answers here for Jake and Jinzo. How much you guys usually do as a percentage of your bankroll?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's depending, but pretty much like you go ahead, Jake, and I'll chime in after.
yeah, I would say similar. I would do I would say first, like set aside how much your bankroll you're willing to trade for shitcoins in general, like how much you're willing to lose, basically. You're okay, and if you're okay losing that amount, and then from that amount, I would use like 5 or 10% of that per trade probably. Is a decent handicap, so you have plenty of trades to try out. And like you said, Ross, like you really don't need. I mean, Sol, like the transaction fees are so small, like you really don't need much. I would just make sure if you're using these bots, like understand the gas, like because if you're trading with point 0.1 and you have prio up to like 0.01 and you have the bribe at 0.02, which I think might be the default, then that's like 30% of your bankroll is going to gas. So that's like really bad if you're using like 0.1. So you can actually, I mean, you can change it to like 0.001 or 0.001 prio, 0.001 bribe, and it'll still go through. You just might have a higher chance of getting mev'd. But if you're doing like that low amount, it's probably like pretty low chance. Also, it might like take a little longer for your transaction to go through, especially if it's like a really high volume coin. Um, those are like risk involved with that, but just make sure you're not like eating up all your bankroll accidentally by having too high of gas set.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because that's what I was gonna expand on was the prio and the gas because I think for me it scales, right? Let's say if you're trading with a portfolio that's 10 SOL, you might play 1 SOL at a time or point 0.5. But if you're just starting out and you loaded up a wallet and you're testing the waters and a SOL is not a big deal for you, but you only put 1 SOL into your wallet, you might want to be trading with point 0.2 at a time. It's only 5 trades, but what you can do to mitigate that is cash out your initial as fast as possible. So, you know what I mean? You cash out your point 0.2, you still have another point 0.2 in there to play, let it go and see how it goes. At least you're writing for free. So it all depends really on what you have to start with. But if I was like, even this wallet that I have going now, that's probably at like 300 SOL worth of value right now. I started with like 3 SOL. So if you're starting off with a very small balance, you can scale up quickly, but you need to make sure you're playing with your rules. Like always, your rules have to be very, very strict, and you have to be strict with yourself. Cash out, set yourself some goals. For example, your short-term goal is to turn 1 SOL into 5 SOL. Perfect. How are you going to do that? You need to cash out quick and then hit the right exits and learn how charts work and scale out properly. And then okay, now you got your 5 SOL target. Cool. You rebalance what your trading strategy might be. How much do you want to play? Probably still point 0.2 to point 0.5 SOL because now you're hitting that other basically like that other threshold that I was saying, where if you have more than 5 SOL, then you can trade a little differently. And you want to kind of reevaluate how you're going to trade, but make sure you're very strict with it. But if you set yourself goals, you're going to be selling much more often. If you're just trying to hit home runs, like, oh, I have 1 SOL, I'm turning this into 100 SOL in one trade, it will never happen. You know, maybe 1% of people will have that happen, and then since you set yourself up with the wrong base and the wrong foundation, well, you're probably just going to give it all up on the next trade too, because now you think, oh, that's the way to do it, right? So really, for me, it's really that. If you're going to trade with one to 3 SOL, like obviously your percentage is going to be a little higher than when you trade with a lot more SOL, but make sure you cash out and stick to your rules because that's what's going to make you survive. It really is that. The trick is that. It's just always sticking to your rules, taking out your initial, selling on the way up, and like just yeah. And that way, at least even if you're on the wrong coin, you're always safe and you're just building your bankroll.
Yeah, definitely need to stick to rules. And one final thing I will add is in terms of positioning. So you might be taking, let's say, like we said, you set aside 5% per trade. I would just be careful to put on multiple trades at one point in time. I'm not saying don't do it, but a lot of it is just market exposure. So I'm sure you've seen on days when crypto is up, every single thing is up, right? It's like across the board, tokens are up 30 to 50%, and the leader might be up more than that. But if you invest in 10 tokens at one point in time, it's not exactly taking 10 different bets. It is to some extent, but if, let's say, crypto just nukes off of a war headline or whatever else you might see, every single position at once might be down simultaneously. So just be cognizant of that. If you're just starting out, I would try to take no more than 2 positions at one time. That way you can just kind of monitor them and let them play out. And you can be patient. FOMO is a hell of a drug, and it's really easy to see if you just hop in the shitcoin chat and MVHQ. There's so many people who are like posting profit and everything else, but there's a ton of stuff you don't see as well. And even if it's not an MVHQ, at any point in time, there's someone on a winning and a losing end of the trade. So just take it slow and just try to like put blinders on for everything else going on around you. Definitely look to people that are successful and try to follow their influence and their strategies, but definitely don't just get into a frenzy where you're just like, damn, I lost on this coin, I need to buy another one right now. Like, just wait and let it come to you. That'll really help you do well in the long term.
Great call, Ross. I'm surprised none of us touched on that earlier. Where don't have too many trades open at once. Like you really don't want to have more than two or three because you're gonna just miss exits. You know what I mean? You're not gonna be able to stay on top of more than that when you're just getting started, especially. So for me, it's the same. Like I posted a lot of screenshots earlier, but I only have a few. I have like a handful of long holds that I scale out, but short-term positions that I'm looking to flip, I only have about two or three, even with a bigger portfolio like I have. Because first of all, we're all really busy in life. If you take your eye off the ball for 2 seconds, you're missing exits anyway. So imagine adding on top of that more positions on different coins. It just doesn't make sense. You're just setting yourself up for disaster.
Very well said. Well, this has been great, gents. We have reached what I think is a pretty good stopping part. But again, if there's any other questions from the audience, feel free, voice hangout chat. And then Jake or Jinzo, if you have any other things to touch on, feel free. But we definitely ran through everything we planned in the agenda and then some.
All good. Thank you guys for tuning in. Maybe we'll do more of these if it's well received.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. I think AI's got the final shout out there. Give us all a coin to buy right now. I'm going to pass on that one, but Jake or Jinza, if there's any coins that you think are hot right now, I know usually we wait till Monday morning to hear some of your takes, but if there's any you want to throw out, feel free. Now's a good time.
Oh man, I don't know. I can't. There's like two coins I'm in right now, but I'm up a good amount in both, so I feel bad shilling them. I'd rather shill when I first get my entry to, or I would feel like shit. But yeah, cheese ball is probably my biggest position right now.
I knew you were going there. I knew.
But with all things, that's actually a good point. It reminds me, none of this is financial advice. Whenever we share stuff, it's never like an endorsement or telling you guys to buy. Just we're all adults. Everyone can make their own decisions, do their own research. It's up to you. The trade ultimately.
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't open with that, but it's okay. We're out of practice. Um, For me, actually, I was gonna mention cheese ball. Also, I like it, but don't like just blindly ape now. Wait for a good entry because it's up 2x just from last night, and much more than that in the last 2 or 3 days. But I like it a lot, and it's everybody's memeing it on Twitter. All the big names are talking about it. It's cool. I like it. Could have a good cult following, so I'm big on that one too. And for my longer term hold, I mentioned it a couple times already, higher market cap for sure, but I think it has a really good foundation. And for a longer term, let's say for me, it's Fog. It's gonna be Fog. It's always gonna be Fog. I love that coin, FWOG. The art's great. Check it out. It's on a little bit of a dip now, but it has ripped like crazy. That too is up 3x in the last few days, so be careful. But just wanted to keep on your radar and to dig into, see if you like it. I mean, I'm not endorsing you to buy it because I don't like pushing coins that are already at 150 million market cap or whatever. But it's just one that I'm really high on, and I'm in from way, way, way before this. So yeah, just a couple to put on your radar.
Awesome. Appreciate it, gents. It was a pleasure talking shit on this lovely Wednesday afternoon here. As always, thank you guys just for making this happen, and thank you to our audience for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys. And don't forget, Thursday we have Fantasy Top Down. So tune in tomorrow to see Silva and Ezrin tear it up in the fantasy streets. Until next time, guys, always a pleasure.
Take care, fellas.
Thanks, everybody.